Good morning, everyone, whether it's morning or afternoon or evening, wherever you may be. There are so many of you tuned into this event, and it is absolutely no surprise, given who our honored guest is, Professor Yunus. I'm Vera Jelinek, founder and divisional dean of the Center for Global Affairs at New York University School of Professional Studies. We're now celebrating our 16th year. Been a very robust year, I must say. We are, as you can imagine, very privileged to be hosting Professor Yunus, who is renowned, and I cannot do him justice, but I just want you to understand the impact that he's had on all of us. You know what he's done, I assume, and you'll hear more about that. He has been and continues to be an inspiration to our graduate students, our non-degree students, to our staff, to our many constituents, to me personally. And his work, actually, and his beliefs and his passion is reflected in much of what we now do and have been doing. His tireless advocacy and support for the UN Sustainable Development Goals, for impoverished, disenfranchised, marginalized communities, wherever they are, not to be left behind, and his calls for equity are reflected in our classrooms and outside of our classrooms. And in many of the things that we do on site in the developing world, in the South, in the global South, he has been a model for all of us, certainly for me, and to all of us who are committed to global citizenship. And I don't say that lightly. On a personal note, which those of you who may know me, I always like to end with a story. He may not remember this, but I did meet him, and in line with Christian Busch, who heads our one of our graduate concentrations, with his new book, which I've read, The Serendipity Mindset. It was a very serendipitous, if there is such a word, moment for me, because we were at a conference, and I don't remember, Professor Yunus, whether it was 12 or more years ago or less, actually on women and on the challenges that women face and how they need to be involved in policymaking. And by some stroke of luck, he and I happened to sit at a small table for two. It was a buffet lunch. And he began to tell me about some of the things that he was then doing in what he called social business. And what it had to do with was to convince the private sector to, for example, manufacture at cost yogurt, which would contain all the nutrients that a child needs. And another one, which was rubber-soled thongs, so that children would not walk barefoot and contract disease. You know, I was just awed by what one man with a conviction, with a passion, can do to make a major, major transformation. He has gone on to do much, much more than that. But I must tell you, those are the reasons why he's such a beacon and such a model for all of us. And I just hope that his example will be emulated by others. I think my 3 minutes are up. I could go on, but I'd like to pass the baton to Dominique Douster, who heads who's managing director of the Yunus+You Foundation. So welcome, Professor Yunus. It is an absolute delight for me to see you again on the screen.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your generous comments.
Thank you very much, Dean Vera, for your warm welcome and remarks. And thank you to NYU for having us and hosting today's event. I'm delighted to introduce to you Dr. Christian Busch, who will lead the conversation with Professor Muhammad Yunus. Christian is a professor at NYU's Center for Global Affairs, where he directs the global economy concentration. He co-founded Leaders on Purpose and is a member of the World Economic Forum's Expert Forum, and as well a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. He was recognized as one of the top 30 management thinkers to watch by Thinkers 50. He's a visiting fellow of the London School of Economics and the author, we just heard it, of the recently published book, The Serendipity Mindset, The Art and Science of Creating Good Luck. And personally, I would like to add that I remember Christian and Professor Yunus met by chance 10 years ago at Professor Yunus and the Grameen Creative Lab's Global Social Business Summit in Germany. At that time, as a co-founder of the Sandbox Network, he began studying Professor Yunus's concept of social business and entrepreneurship. So I see this encounter of both today not only completing a circle, but as another great example of serendipity itself. And with this, I hand over to Christian and Professor Yunus, and I wish you a fruitful conversation.
Well, thank you so much, Dean Jelling and Mr. Douser, for your wonderful comments, and indeed for sharing such a beautiful personal journey, I think, with all of us and all the students who are with us here today. It's such a delight and honor to welcome you, Professor Yunus. As Dominic mentioned, ever since those 10 years ago in Wolfsburg, you know, your work has been a deep inspiration for a lot of my work and my teaching, but also for us as a center and everything we've been doing around social business, purpose-driven leadership, and so on. So it's a delight to be with you and to share these moments with you, especially in such a challenging time where I think a lot of people look up to people like you to understand where's the world going and what can we do. As Dean Jelling mentioned, you know, you probably, you know, everyone knows you extremely well, so no introduction would do any justice, but I will mention a couple of pillars just to kind of set the stage, which is that, you know, you've been a Nobel Peace Prize laureate, founder of Grameen Bank, but not only of one bank, but essentially of over 50 businesses in Bangladesh and around the world, which is, you know, the most serial entrepreneurish endeavor I've seen in my life. You've also been a UN SDG advocate, so really working with the United Nations on the Sustainable Development Goals and trying to see how we can turn them into practice. And we'll talk more about this. And then, of course, as the chair of the Yunus Centre, which has been wonderfully supportive over the years and is established around the world and inspires a lot of young people, especially, to have an impact in the world. Professor Yunus also is internationally recognized, of course. I mean, we all know him for his work in poverty alleviation, especially also around women empowerment, which obviously is one of the most worthy causes, if not the worthiest cause that we can think of. And also a prolific writer. You know, those of us who are academics also deeply appreciate your work, of course, in economics and how we understand social business, both on the academic and in the kind of pragmatic sense of the word. You know, you are the founder and father of social business and of microcredit, which obviously has gone on to inspire a lot of other things like micro saving, micro insurance. So we can't, it's impossible to put into words how much impact there has grown from these kind of efforts back in the days in Bangladesh. And so it's fascinating to see that you also, you know, not only one honorary degree from university, but over 60 honorary degrees. And that's very well deserved, of course, that universities recognize that kind of impact that you've had in the world. And then, of course, the latest book I would want to mention, which is A World of Three Zeros: Zero Poverty, Zero Unemployment, and Zero Net Carbon Emissions, which sounds like a wonderfully beautiful vision and mission to have and to also kind of inspire students with. Most importantly, and that is on a personal note, similar to Dean Jelling, I feel that's important, I've always been flabbergastedly excited about the humility and the grace with which you've gone over doing your things and your work and all the impact in the world, which also shows the character that kind of purpose-driven leaders hopefully imbue. And so truly a role model for many people around the world. So we're very delighted to have you with us, Professor Yunus, both for the inspiration you've given us, but also the character that you've shown as a kind of role model for a lot of young people around the world. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So diving in, I mean, you know, how are you at the moment in this kind of crazy time? Where are you at the moment, and how has the world changed for you and the people in Bangladesh?
Well, I would say that when you have a challenging time, the worse it gets, better chance we have to come up with outrageously different ideas and outrageous decision making. Because in a normal kind of situation, you don't come up with bold decisions. You don't want to defy things, you just float around. So this is a good time to have absolutely outlandish ideas to go through all those and make a big difference in the life and so on. And the time is right. We are in a serious crisis, even without pandemic. Pandemic is a kind of a break. We are already in deep, deep trouble. If you look at the global warming, for example, we are under notice. Countdown has begun that the world will be over. So we can hear every morning, one more day gone, a few more days to go. So that's the kind of situation we were in. And Corona has stopped that. Countdown has stopped for a while. So we have a break now. And during this break time, we have to decide how to get away from that countdown, how to create a different direction. So that needs extremely bold decisions. There are absolutely defined way that we have to do that. So I'm very excited because this opportunity has arisen.
Yeah, and that beautifully leads to something that you've been leading. I mean, we've been inspired by your efforts around this kind of the idea of having COVID vaccines being accessible to people around the world, to really kind of think about how do we develop an inclusive, not only economy, but inclusive society globally. Do you want to dive a little bit into, like, what is on your mind at the moment? What do you feel is the most pressuring issues around the COVID situation and how we can go about it?
Number one, as I was started telling you, that number one is to decide no going back. We don't want to go back where we are coming from. 6, 9 months back, where we were, everybody's trying to get back there. I said, why are you hurrying back to go there? It's a terrible world. We should be thanking our star that we are away from that. We stopped that. So we should be making that decision. So looking at the world that we have been, whether we want to go back. And by any logic, it will say, no going back. We don't want to go back. That's the decision, very firm, strong decision every one of us has to make. Because then everything else will follow. If we are not going back, where are we going? Then you have to define where we're going and so on. Definitely, we don't want to go back to a world which is subject to total annihilation of human beings on this planet because of the global warming. There's no chance human being can survive. There's only 2 decades, 3 decades left for us to survive. So that's not an exciting world to go back to. And it's getting worse every day before the corona began. After the corona came, little relax on the global warming. But it didn't stop the process, but it has been a little relaxed. Now we want to come to zero net carbon emissions. So that's the direction that we have to go. How do we do that? And this is the decision. And that was a world also an extreme wealth concentration. Every day, wealth was concentrated more and more in few hands and few hands. And literally 1% of the people in the world, 1% of the population of the world own 99% of the wealth. This is ugly information. 1% owning 99% of the wealth. So the reverse of it, if you look at the other way, 99% of the world population has to do with only 1% of the wealth. So this is the world we created. And every day it's getting worse as in the world that we are coming from. That was making worse and worse, meaning that the next day it will be less than 1% of population owning more than 99% of the population, wealth of the entire world. That is a ticking time bomb. So we don't want to go back to that ticking time bomb. Third one is that's a world where artificial intelligence is coming in a big way to take away everybody's job, everybody's activity, everybody's livelihood, because the machines can do better work than the human being. So there is no reason why anybody should be at any place doing anything. So what do we do in that world? They have no use for us in that world. So why should we go back to the world where they have no use for us? We are human beings as creative beings. We want to be creative in every second of our life. As long as we live here, we use our creative power. and we want to discover the unlimited creativity that each one of us has. Whether you are born in a very, very rich family, whether you are born on the street, doesn't matter. You still have the same human spirit, same human creativity, is unlimited creativity. So the whole society should be built in a way to help each one to discover himself and herself. Everybody is packed with all those creative power. How do we do that? Not the world that we are coming from. They are packed, they are completely sealed off by creating something called job orientation. Everybody has to take a job. I said, job is not something goes with the human being. So we are not born to be working for somebody else. That looks very odd to me. Why human beings should be work for anybody? Human beings are entrepreneur. That's our history. All throughout history, the hundreds of thousands of years that we have passed through, we were entrepreneurs. We are go-getters. We are problem solvers. We became farmers. We became cave dwellers. Animal husbandry. This is what we did. We took our own thing. We did our own thing. That's how we survived. We struggle with the environment to make it sure that it's convenient for us, it's comfortable for us, so that we live with the environment, so that the environment help us, we help the environment, the mutually beneficial arrangement that we made. And this is how we survive on this planet. We are creative, or we brought creativity all the time. Suddenly this is replaced by job. I said, job is the end of human creativity. Job is taken away your creative power, because job by definition is run by orders, by instructions, by your rule books. You cannot invent something for yourself. It's all done. You follow the rules, you follow the thing. That's not human being, the definition of a human being who follow the rules of somebody who's instructed to behave in a certain way without questioning them. If I have different views, if I have a different way of looking at it, I have no right to challenge those things. So we have to even surrender our own feeling, own inclination in doing that. So I said, we don't want to go in that way. And the job is the one which is also responsible for wealth concentration, because we work for somebody else. So that somebody else make all the money because we work for him or work for her. They make the money and we slave for them. I said, that's how the concentration of wealth goes on, because we all work for them. If we are all entrepreneurs, for example, by some magic, if you can imagine, all human beings on this planet are entrepreneurs doing their own thing, there is no wealth concentration, because everybody is picking up their own wealth. So there's nobody to help you to accumulate wealth by sacrificing somebody's own labor to make you happen that. So that is completely solved. The wealth concentration will be solved. So this is the kind of thing that we want to address during this pandemic season, that how to redesign the whole thing, rethinking. The whole issue is about rethinking the entire structure that we built. The process of the thinking, the concepts that we built, institutions that we have designed, now has to revisit and design it completely different way. If the institution is taking us one direction, we have to reverse that direction. Create the institution which can take everything in the other direction. If it is creating global warming, we will reverse it, make it global environment to be shared by everybody else, in a very healthy environment we create. So it's a reversal of that thing. And if it's wealth concentration, it will be wealth sharing. If it is a artificial intelligence taking job, we say goodbye artificial intelligence. We are good enough for this planet. We have been here for a long, long time, and we continue to stay here for more such time for the future.
Yeah, what I appreciate a lot about what you said is this kind of mixture between realism and optimism, right? This kind of, I mean, to really see that the world before was broken and it didn't work that way, and there was societal inequality, and the virus comes and it amplifies societal inequalities in the way people get vaccines and all these different types of issues. And then maybe this collective near-death experience now being a potential inflection point to actually do something about it. And you know, it reminds me a lot on my bedside table, I have the Viktor Frankl book of Man's Search for Meaning, and this idea of always finding meaning in crisis and always finding a way to say, what do we do with this now? And I think that kind of rational optimism that you embody in a way is exactly that kind of thing, to say, what do we do now with this moment? And do you feel, you know, your work, of course, and a lot of the things you just mentioned are based on this idea that a lot of the solutions have to be fixed locally by entrepreneurs and creatives and people who are really going about creating things. Do you feel there is something where we can now, especially in relation to the Sustainable Development Goals and the big issues and challenges out there, like how do we engage people to really tackle this? Did anything change, or what are the kind of mechanisms to initiate that entrepreneurial effort towards tackling these big global challenges now?
Let me see how I take this question, how I try to formulate this answer for you. In my work, I always put the individual at the center, not the government, not the international body, not some research organizations doing the things and so on. I said each human being is the power. Is the human being which triggers everything. So if we want to create a world without global warming, zero net carbon emission, I don't rush to go to the fossil fuel industry and stop that. I said to start from me. I'm responsible for that too. So first, am I carbon neutral? So I have to see whether I'm talking about carbon neutrality and creating this world, but I'm not doing it myself. So I start from myself. I said, what do I buy every day? This is as a person, as a consumer, I keep buying. What am I buying? Am I buying something which is contributing to the global warming? And I have a list. These are the products that I cannot buy because these are supporting the global warming. They are encouraging the global warming. So fossil fuel connected, all goods are off my list. Because so this is my decision. It's not a government making a law. Before the government makes anything, I make my own law that I don't want to do that. So this is a beginning. And I tell the producer, look, I get confused every time I come to the grocery shop. When I look for which one is safe for me, safe for the planet, I cannot do that. Can you put some marks on them? A green dot or a blue dot or a yellow dot so that I know which one is what? If it is a green dot, I know it's safe for the planet. And that means you have done everything is a process to the green energy and so on. So I very easily, I buy that stuff. I don't buy the one with the red dot, which says it contributes to the global warming. It's a fossil fuel driven consumer goods. So I don't want to do that. I don't want to buy any gadgets which needs fossil fuel for it to run and so on. So my decision, if we all do that, fossil fuel will be out. Because I'm the promoter of the fossil fuel. If I don't buy the fossil fuel stuff, it will be hard on me because it's so much easy to have a car with everything is so cheap, the fuel is cheap, I can do that, and comfortable. You see, we know what is contributing to the global warming. It's not a secret that, hide it, nobody knows. We know everybody knows, it's all recorded. We know how much is contributed by what, by whom. It's listed. But still we keep on complaining as if we don't know anything. We know it. If we know, then why don't you do that? I said, I give it an example. It's like a drug addict. He keeps on enjoying the drug. He's addicted to it. He knows it's a bad thing. You don't have to give a lecture that it's a bad thing. He knows, but he can't stop. He keeps on doing that. So we are addicted to this. That addiction part I have to overcome. So we are all addicted people. We have to overcome that addiction. And I take my money, put it in a bank, my salary, whatever I earn, I put it in my bank account. I never ask that bank, where this money go to? Who do you give this money to? I give you the money. And you give me something, as if I'm lucky, get some interest. In most countries now, it's a zero interest and near zero interest and so on. But I give my money to you. Where do you put this money? All billions of dollars, trillions of dollars that you accumulate from all of us. You pull this money and give it to big guys who are running all the fossil fuel industry. So I asked my bank, do you invest in anything which contributes to the fossil fuel? If it does, sorry, I'm not doing any business with you. So if I don't do business with you, your business is closed. If I don't do it, you don't do it, then business is closed. So now everybody said, look, I'm here, it's a clean, lots of certificates. We don't invest our money into any fossil fuel. Then I go and you go, open our account. So I decide those things. So this is everything at the center, the individual is the center. What we do, what we want to do, that makes it happen. And then I said that the economics have made a big, big mistake and they pushed it into a wrong direction by defining human being in an absolutely wrong way. It is defined human being as someone driven by self-interest. That's the core of capitalist economy. Someone driven by self-interest. That's why we have designed businesses for self-interest, profit maximization. So we don't see anything else. Our eyes are completely blocked away from everything else. Only thing we see money. Our nose only sniffs money, nothing else. So we are all create ourselves into an instrument, into a robot which can sniff money, and we pursue money. Nothing else matters for us. And that's the beginning of the whole structure that we built. I said, what if we can redefine as a person, as a human being? Human being is a combination of both self-interest and common interest. Common interest is completely disregarded by economists. That's not a subject for them. Self-interest is a subject for them. I said, that's why we ruined ourselves. We became a selfish world. In the selfish world, money is the king. So nothing matters in that. So the moment you bring this collective interest, which human beings are, human beings, no matter what you tell him, still he has this common interest in the mind, but he cannot put it on the table. He has to keep it on the side. It's a charity, something else. It's not, we don't do it in the office. It's off the office discussion of that. If something is happening, we can do, how do you bring water? How do we bring healthcare for the people who are dying and so on and so forth. So this is it. So why don't we bring it to the table? If it's in me, if I'm defining myself, I should put both of it, self-interest and common interest. The self-interest has a very elaborate description of business, how it is done. Common interest has no business at all, there's no recognition at all. So we put it on the table and define it and create a business for the common interest so that we can create a business to achieve the common interest. That's what we've done. We call it social business. A business, just the reverse of the other business. It's a profit, on the one hand, is a profit maximization. We reversed it. We say zero personal profit. That's a common. We draw self out of the table, and here we put everybody else on the table. That is for you. The business is for you to solve your problem, help you overcome problems. That business is dedicated for that purpose, and we have no interest in making a penny out of that business. So what's wrong with that? If you have that common interest, you'll do that. I'm not forcing you again. I'm not the government. I'm not to make a law to do that. If you have feeling like that, I said, there is an opportunity. You can run a business to solve the problems of the people. And as Vera has mentioned about the yogurt, simple idea. This is a big yogurt company, Danone. I said that if they're interested in social business, I said, why don't you start a social business for malnourished children in Bangladesh? There are 48% of our children are malnourished. What a terrible thing. A child born as a malnourished child, meaning that your intellectual capacity is gone because you cannot develop your intellectual capacity. Your physical capacity is get stunted. You are not as healthy, as tall as everybody else, just because a tiny little thing missing in your body. So I said, why don't you create that yogurt, special yogurt, put all the micronutrients which are missing in the malnourished children, and let them eat this yogurt to get these micronutrients. And over a period of time, they will get all the micronutrients. So they'll be as healthy as anybody else. This is a good beginning of a life. If I'm healthy, if my mind is working like anybody else, I can conquer the whole world. So this is the idea. And you are not, this is not a charity that you give it away. It should be a sustainable business. Only thing you do, this business, you're not doing to make money out of them. You're doing it to do it in a sustainable way so that you cover your cost and children get the yogurt that they need. Their parents can buy them, they can eat them, and they become healthy children. That's a simple idea. And that simplicity can be introduced in any direction. So I'm asking every university, every college, every teacher should be teaching children that there are two kinds of businesses. A business to make money for yourself. Go ahead, do it. And there is a business to solve problems. Whatever problem you see, you can create a social business to solve it. It's your creative power to bring it. The moment you bring your creative power, all the problems of the world will be solved in a sustainable way. And it will grow, continue to grow. The charity is a wonderful thing. We could use the charity too. But the limitation of charity is charity money goes out, does a wonderful work, but the money doesn't come back. It's a one-way traffic. So you have only very limited use of your money because it's a one-time use of your money. I said, you take the objective of your charity, put a business machine, business engine behind it, and it becomes a social business. And all you have to do is to now you recycle the money again and again. The money comes back. And the charity money doesn't come back. It's one-time money. But the social business money keeps coming back again and again, up to infinity, non-stop. So you have very powerful money in your hand. So that's the attention I'm drawing. So kids are smart enough to choose. If I want to do something, I don't have to go scream at somebody else. I can do it myself and show that it can be done. That's how the microcredit began. That's how we talk about the microcredit. This is a simple thing. It's nothing earth-shattering. It's a very simple idea. But simply we distance ourselves from making money. I didn't create a bank to make rich guy. I wanted to solve the problem of the people so that they can do it and the business can run by itself. That's what the whole idea. So I put individual in the center of everything. So other things can come around and we build institutions and so on and so forth. I'll stop here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And your thoughts definitely have taken strong hold here as well. I mean, you know, the courses usually around impact investing and around social responsibility and social business are the most subscribed ones among a lot of other wonderful courses. So it's wonderful, you know, how your thoughts essentially have kind of embarked on a journey around the world and into education institutions. So kudos on that. And do you feel, I mean, I can only imagine the journey you've gone through over the last decades in terms of seeing what works, what doesn't work, also learning about yourself, learning about others. What surprised you on this journey? Was there something where we're like, wow, I didn't expect this at the beginning, and then things emerged, and now looking back, I realized XYZ, you know, came out of the blue? Or
I'm triggered by the circumstances. I don't care what is happening tomorrow, what happened yesterday. This is the situation right now, like the corona pandemic now. I'm triggered by that. And I want to get things done right now because it's here and it revealed lots of the weaknesses in our society. It was there, we knew it, but it was not visual. Suddenly, corona made it very visual. Millions of people, billions of people, suddenly without income. Suddenly they have no food on their table because they were daily income earners. And economists have nothing to do with them because it is an informal sector. We cannot do anything about it until they become the formal. As if somebody has to prepare everything and put it in front of the economists to deal with them. If all the problems are solved, who needs economists anyway? So how do we address this? I said, these are the people who are the micro-entrepreneurs, for God's sake. It's not an informal sector, it's a micro-entrepreneurial sector. If you see them as a micro-entrepreneurial sector, suddenly it becomes the powerhouse of every society, no matter which society you're looking at. They are the basis on which the whole pyramid of entrepreneurship stands. They are the base. So help the base, help the powerhouse to explode, to continue, create the financial institution, because entrepreneurship needs finance. Finance is the fuel of entrepreneurship. Without finance, there is no entrepreneurship. So where do these guys get their finance? To the loan shark. And the loan sharks take away everything that you got. And they say loan sharks are everywhere. It's whether in New York City, in the city that your university is in, or in Bangladesh, or anywhere else. In New York City, they call it mafia. If you don't pay back the money, they break your neck, they break your legs, they kill you, or whatever, they shoot you. This is their style, but they survive. And that's how they grab everything that you got. You have to pay. Because formal financial institutions never bothered to come anywhere near them. I said, why not? They said it cannot be done. So we demonstrated, look, this can be done. Now today we run Grameen America right there in New York City and many other 14 cities in the United States. And they run even in the corona pandemic. Their performance is wonderful. People borrow, when 100% of our borrowers in USA are women. 150,000 women take this money and pay back. Even in the corona pandemic time, their businesses went down, but they redesigned payment system and so on, so that they can still pay back and continue to get fresh money so that they can save their businesses and so on. So it's still there and flourishing, continuing and so on. So this is the kind of thing that didn't exist. I said, now that microcredit became popular, everybody knows about it, how come we still didn't create the bank? How come it still is an NGO activity? NGOs have to do that. When bank has to make money, NGOs has to do the charity. What about the social business in between? Why don't you accept that as a business to make it happen, social business? So these are the kind of interventions that we have to do. So I would say that I get excited about the immediate need. And that's how the microcredit was born, actually. It was under the circumstances of a famine. People were dying. So, and that was a great pressure which pushed me to do something. And all I was trying to do is to protect few people, a handful of people, 4, 5, 10 people from the loan sharks. That was my only thing I was trying to do. I was not trying to make a big microcredit. That word didn't exist, microcredit. Simply we explained what we are doing, and somebody coined that word as a microcredit. We didn't coin the word, but that became a new word in English language. And then it spread into other languages, microcredit, microfinance, and so on and so forth. So this action came first. Theory came later. See, we are driven by the theory as if we have to behave like what the theory asks us to do. I said, that's a shame. Theory doesn't dictate us. We dictate the theory. We behave like this. You write down, this is the way we do. You don't tell us how we do it. We do it what we feel good about. And that's what the human being feel about. And we want to create a world of 3 zeros. That's what we are discussing in the beginning. Because we feel like it. We are capable of doing that. And why don't we do that? We don't have to bound by the theories. The theory says so. Our financial institution says so. Our this institution says so. Those things are later on. First, we decide what we want. We want a world of 3 zeros. 0 wealth concentration. We don't want any wealth concentration. And we can do that, sharing wealth, not concentrating wealth. We want 0 net carbon emission. It can be done because we know the procedures and so on. And we don't want the artificial intelligence to take away everything from us. Artificial intelligence can be a blessing. It can be a curse. When it takes away my job and everybody's job, it's a curse. So we don't want this intervention here. So they say, oh, you cannot stop technology. I say, who says so? You say that if it is producing weapons of mass destruction technology, we can't stop it. If it is producing nuclear weapons, we cannot stop it. We do. When we see it's not the right use of the technology, we immediately say it cannot be done. If you're producing medicine which kills people, we stop it. That's why we have the FDA and all kinds of things that we cannot sell it in the market because this is harmful to people. We do it all the time, but still you feel like, oh, you can't do it. I said we can allow technology only which is a blessing. We cannot technology which is a curse, which is a killer. We cannot do that. So those are the things. So what I'm saying, I'm triggered by that. I want to imagine. Imagination for me is the most important thing, not the action first. It's the imagination which drives the action. And then theories and other things follow that. So this is the direction that I try to work.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting because it's really, you know, like observing your life from afar over the last years and decades, it also felt that, you know, when thinking about how Danone and you came about and, you know, these different things, it seems like you had this sense of direction, this kind of North Star where you knew you were going, but then you were ready for the unexpected and said, okay, let it emerge. And so this kind of almost like a serendipity field, right? Where you're saying, wow, like all these things can emerge because you're cultivating this kind of force field around it. So it's been fascinating. And it's actually something that leads me to my before last question, if there's something like that, being very respectful of your time, of course. I mean, you have so many things lined up here. If you were a student in this kind of world full of uncertainty where you can't know how the world will look like tomorrow, right? It's impossible to plan everything out, to map everything out. How do you set yourself up for this unexpectedness? How do you set yourself up for this world? And what would you do if you were a 23-year-old student now at NYU? How can you get excited about social business and put yourself on this journey?
Well, I love to become 23-year-old university student. I love that. I'm actually jealous of him or her because so lucky of them with that age and with this kind of environment that they have, which I never had. Imagine we are in a prehistoric period. We are born when we have to write by our pen in a piece of paper. And no kids now write on a paper. They don't have a beautiful letterheads to write on the pads and so on, and a nice little envelope. All forgotten. Stamp, leaking stamp and put it. These are gone. We are the prehistoric people. So the tremendous power that 23-year-old have, which is enough to change the entire world. You don't need 2 of them, just 1. Every one of them as good as anybody else. He has all the power, she has all the power to redesign the entire world. It's all about imagination. I talk about science fiction a lot. I said, that's a wonderful thing. Science fiction goes wild. It does everything in the name of science. They do things and go places and speed the conquer, all kinds of things. Your imagination has to be really wild to make those happen. I said, you know what? That imagination in science fiction create the real science, because they are the one which leads the scientists. Hey, why not? Can we do something like that? All the gadgets that we have today is all science fiction products. It used to be in science fiction before, and somebody said, hey, can we do something like that, even close to it? And by the time we do close to it, we came very close to it, made it happen. That's why the science always follows the science fiction. This is the tradition, that you go wild, and the scientists say, maybe we should do something like that. Can you do that? He asks his students. They come up with some ideas. And this is the way it works. Step one, step two. In the beginning, it looks crazy thing, crude thing. But then when it works, you go a little bit refined here. It looks very interesting. This is the science. I said, we have done so much of science fiction. We love that. We love it in movies. We love it in television. We love it everywhere. Why don't we write social fictions? What's wrong with social fictions? We don't do the social fiction. I said, we should be concentrating on social fiction. What kind of world we have? This is a subject of any social fiction, that this is the way it is, and come up with ideas how your wealth concentration disappear on a certain day because somebody did something and suddenly it worked. And somebody did something, there is no poor people, there's only museums of poverty. And what happened to poor people? They ask people, oh, we don't know. We never saw a poor person. So we brought our class to the science or poverty museum because we were discussing the history. There was a chapter on poverty. So our kids were very interested to understand what is poverty, why couldn't they eat, why were sick, why didn't they have the house, why do you have to drink polluted water, what's wrong with those people, why didn't the people behave in a way that they could live a little better, what other people were watching them, not doing anything, what kind of human being were they? So we brought the class here to discuss how it happened and how finally we got rid of it, so that they can see the reality with history and so on. So that will be the part of it, the museum part. So we leave all these things to the museum, all the global warming, the big museum of global warming, the whole world was about to bust. We came very, very close. And finally this thing happened, turn around, and then the ideas come. Do we have something like this still left behind? Can we do something else? Everybody has an idea. If you get to challenge it, your creativity comes. So that's why when we are at the deepest of the crisis, all our creative energy comes at the top. We became very, very creative at the time of crisis. Under pressure, we build those things. So I say, this is a good time for creativity to show that we don't have to go back. This is the time to push the world in a completely different direction. And that's what they're reviewing. So the 23-year-old can change the whole world. That's the whole thing. And he's the most powerful human being on this planet. He's actually a superhuman being compared to our generation. The power that he or she has is a superhuman being. I keep asking, are you aware of that you're a superhuman? Are you aware of the limitless power that you hold? If you're not aware, that nothing can be done. It's wasted. Because you are the superhuman, you are the Superman, but you didn't know that you were a Superman. You never jumped out of your window and start flying because you didn't know that. Now you become aware. You are a superhuman being. You can create the world you want. You don't have to wait for anybody else. The seed is in your hand. You do that, it will become a new world.
Yeah, that's a beautiful kind of wrap up, I feel. And it beautifully reminds me of this idea of Margaret Mead back in the days when she said that you should never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, because Absolutely. It's the only thing that ever has, right? And I think you have embodied this and you have lived this. And so we're very grateful. And, needless to say that we'd love to host you in person here at some point once the world opens up again. And I feel we could talk for such a long time, and there's so many issues we would love to talk about. So if you have any last thoughts, we could, or if you want to leave any kind of last idea here, we could do that, and then I'll wrap up the session.
Well, thank you. This is, again, I will just emphasize that this is the right time. Mm-hmm. This time will not come back in our lifetime again. Hopefully it will not come back in centuries, but we have it right now. We are passing to that. We will someday, maybe we'll look back and we'll regret that we didn't use this time. let's not go to that part, not to regret. We say we make use of it. This is the time, every moment of it counts. This time it counts. And instead of saying, oh, everything is falling apart. Yes, falling apart because everything was wrong. So we fix it. We fix it so that it will never, we fix it in such a way, it will never, ever fall apart again. We did the right thing. So this is the beginning of that. This is the time to take the first step. You don't change overnight, but you make the first step. So take that first step. That first step will make the 1,000-mile journey possible. If you don't take that first step today, that journey will not be happening. We'll be stuck. And maybe our fate is sealed. Human being never accept defeat. Human being does think what he wants. And he never fails. And that's the time we have. We want it, and we will get it done. If human being makes up his or her mind, it will happen. There's no option to that. So this is the time to make up our mind and make it happen.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for this wonderful call to action. And I'd encourage everyone to reach out to the Yunus centers around the world, the universities that host Yunus centers, to Dominic and his team at the foundation, to the Yunus Centre, Tanbirul and his team, which is wonderful. And of course, wherever Professor Yunus speaks, I always encourage you to listen. I think there's always so many gems in there that can be learned from. So thank you so much, Professor Yunus, for joining us. Thank you so much.
And on Friday, 8 o'clock, your time, no, I don't know what is your time, Bangladesh time, 8 o'clock, there's a lecture on microfinance in USA and the pandemic. It will be done by, its speaker will be Andreas Young, who is the head of Grameen America, who used to be the CEO of Avon, the famous company. She left the job from Avon as a CEO, as one of the top CEOs in the business, and took the job to become the CEO of Grameen America, which was a tiny business at that time, for $1 a year salary. So this is what and she will tell you the story, how Grameen America has expanded and how all the problems she faced, so it will be very interesting right there in New York City. She's headquartered there and lots of branches are located right there in New York City. I encourage your students and your friends to watch it Friday morning, your time.
That sounds fantastic. We'll make sure to share
and,
that.
Yes, I think Dom can give you the contact and then Tanvir can give you the contact so that everything can be. So do you know the real life, exact instant, real history is happening right around you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And I appreciate that you, as always, connect the dots, right? You're directly already at the next journey. So that's fantastic. So we'll definitely make sure to share this event. And we're very much looking forward to keeping in touch. And thank you also so much to Michelle, D'Amico, for pulling this all together. As usual, right? It's strong women who bring all these things together. So we really appreciate this, Din Jelinek and Michelle for pulling this together, and Professor Yunus and Dominic and Tanbirul for joining us. Thank you so much, and everyone have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Vera. Thank you, Dom.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Professor. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.